Il va terminer par.
Comme toi, tu es un ancien, peut-être tu es assis dans l'eau comme ça.
All right, folks, I think we're ready to start. We have opened up the webinar. We've started the live stream, so I'm going to go ahead and say a few words of welcome. All right, so officially, good afternoon, everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. Welcome to this job market information session for PhD students in economics. Welcome panelists who are joining us in person and online, and audience members also in the Zoom and in ForSpace. We are streaming live from Concordia University's ForSpace, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. At ForSpace, we work with Concordia faculty, staff, and students to connect people to the research projects, initiatives, and dialogues in development across Concordia and with our external colleagues and partners. So it's our pleasure to have the opportunity to collaborate with the CIREC PhD Students Conference for this info session. I'll just quickly mention that we are live streaming this session, and I'll put that link into the chat in just a minute. And for those of you who are in the space, you notice there's microphones for the panelists. If you're speaking, please have those turned on so that those of us on Zoom can hear you. If there's questions in the space from the audience members, we'll have to get one of those handheld mics to you so that, again, the folks on Zoom will be able to hear you. For the folks on Zoom, you know the rules of engagement. Feel free to use the Q&A for any comments and questions. And if you'd like to speak, you can raise a virtual hand and we'll go ahead and unmute you so that you could share your comments with all of us here in the space. Okay, on that note, I'll pass it over to our organizers and to our moderator. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. On behalf of Dr. Cardia and CIREC, we'd like to thank all of you for attending, and a special thanks to all of our guests extended from CIREC for helping us today. So today we have 6 speakers who are going to give about a 10-minute presentation about what they do in their path. And afterwards, we're going to have a Q&A session, so you'll be able to ask your questions to them. For our guests, we have Michael Aguessy, who is a Concordia alumni. Unfortunately, for some of you, I don't know where you came from, but I actually met Michael when I started my PhD. We have Jessica Burley from the analysis group. We have Lerby Ergun, who works at the Bank of Canada. We have Magnim Farouh from Ernst & Young. And online on Zoom, we have Jérôme Gagnon-April from the Ministry des Finances de Québec and Pondi from the International Monetary Fund. So for our guests, is there somebody who'd like to start us off? Okay, Michael, I will pick you because I know you.
So you can hear me? Okay.
It's not on, Michael. It's not on. Sorry.
Okay. Why about now? Okay. Yeah, I'm not used to it, so. I'm Michael. Yeah, I did my PhD at Concordia. I specialize in econometrics mostly. I prepared something quick so that we have something to discuss. So I studied statistics in my bachelor degree, and then I went for economics. And mostly in economics, my focus was financial economics or financial econometrics all the time, from the master to the PhD. In my PhD, I was more focused on econometric theory because my goal was to understand better the models. So I wanted to be stronger at it and open all the career paths that are possible. So I went for theory. So the goal was either I get in academia or I go in the industry. But either way, I wanted to be strong enough. So I got my first job opportunity at National Bank in 2018. I worked there. I started as advisor. Sometimes we focus on the title. We want to reach the highest possible title when we go out from school. Advisor is equivalent to senior analyst positions. I was the lucky ones, one of the lucky ones that started as advisor and got promoted senior advisor after 6 months. So what I want to tell you is that it all depends on you, okay? So once I got promoted as senior advisor, which is equivalent to chief analyst, I will always do this analogy from time to time because there has been some inflation on the titles. You can see sometimes job ads with assistant vice president in BNP Paribas, for example, finance jobs, but it's just equivalent to chief analyst position. So equivalent to senior advisor in a bank. Then I went to EDC. In NBC, I was in model validation team. Always models, it just followed me. In EDC, Export Development Canada, I started as a senior advisor, which is more equivalent in the business to chief advisor or chief analyst because the team is more senior. So I'm also a former organizer of CIREC PhD conference, as you can see. The next slide, please. So for the job opportunities, like I was saying, you will always encounter things like analyst, senior analyst, quantitative analyst, data scientist, machine learning. It's all different names for quant. So we are equipped for those kind of jobs. So we don't be shy. Look at the job description and pay attention to what is described. Did you use those tools in the past? And sometimes we feel shy because we don't connect with some softwares. In Concordia, I taught Stata often to students, but in my work, I have always been using SAS. The coding syntax is the same, right? So don't be shy. Don't think that you don't have enough. Go, try, read. Sometimes it just takes, it's all in the seat, like we say, most of the time. So for all those type of positions, you can apply. For the profiles in the industry, I'm from finance, quantitative positions in finance. I would say in all my colleagues, because I'm in validation team, we analyze models. My colleagues will have PhD in math, physics. Some will be master in financial engineering. It's the just be a quant, right? So in your applications, I want you to link your experience. Sometimes we don't have hands-on experience when we're studying, but we can link a course, our tutorials to the job opportunity. And this is what matters most. I also, at a certain point in my career, considered the FRM certification because I wanted to be exposed to the risk management industry. I wanted to understand what they do. Of course, I know a bit about econometrics, but I wanted to know how they apply it. I want to speak the language, right? So in interview, they expect you to speak the language. They don't care about what you have learned in the past, but you want to adapt, to adjust. At the same time, you're highly educated, so you can adjust your language to who is in front of you. For the next slide, I think it's about tips for the interview. At National Bank, I interviewed some job candidates. And what I notice is that they focus so much on the job that they don't master their resume, and they show up, and finally they have been selected for an opportunity for what they have in the resume, but they don't show how great they are, how good they are at their art. So you shouldn't fail at what is yours, right? So focus on that. And finally, for the last interview tip, you a PhD, yeah. We know that. You come for a job interview, yeah. You cannot be lucky from the bachelor to the PhD, right? You're probably a bit smart, or at least something, right? So don't try to play genius. Yeah, no need. No need. They're looking for a colleague, someone they can interact with, someone they can go grab a beer with. They're not looking for someone who can build a racket, right? So that's pretty much what I can say about my path. Questions?
Okay, I guess we'll continue to our next panelist, and then I guess after all the panelists go, we'll have some questions being asked. And just as a side note, anybody who's watching on Zoom, if you want to ask a question, you could type it into the chat or the Q&A, and later on I'll bring them up. So Magnim, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the organizers for inviting me. So I didn't prepare anything. I don't have any slides, so sorry, tough week. Yeah, so my name is Magnim Farouh, and I come from University of Montreal. And I graduated in 2020 during the pandemic. So I take the opportunity, given that there were the pandemic, there was nothing to do outside, so I focused on my my thesis and I finished. Okay, so to give a brief presentation of myself, so I have a mathematical background. So I started in Togo, 2 years of mathematics, and then I moved to Cameroon, and I did statistics and economy there. And then I applied for my PhD, at the University of Montreal, and I got accepted, and I came here, and I did my PhD in economy. And during my thesis, I focused on financial econometrics, and also a little bit of machine learning. You know, this is the, I mean, like nowadays everybody is doing machine learning, so I was like, okay, I have to know a little bit of machine learning as well. So I learned Python and all the thing about Python, artificial intelligence, all these fancy things. And then I went on the job market after. Okay, usually the job market, as you know, is before you do your PhD thesis. And I went on the job market, and I wasn't lucky, so I didn't get any job. And I applied for a postdoc. So I got a postdoc at Schema Business School, and I was doing, like I said, a little bit of machine learning. I was doing what we call reinforcement learning. So I was using reinforcement learning to for the optimization of portfolio. So I spent 4 months in my postdoc, and then I was like, okay, why? The postdoc was really interesting. Okay, it was really interesting, but given that it was something short, usually the postdoc you'll do something like 1 year or 2 years, and then you're gonna get back to the job market. To be honest with you, I wasn't like I didn't want to go on the job market again because it was yeah. So I was like, okay, let's get a job in the industry quickly and move on to, I won't say something more interesting, but like kind of try to explore some new stuff, you know. So I started with the Big Four. So I get some job interview with KPMG, Deloitte. So I was with KPMG and Deloitte, and the job interview was going like really good. So I prepared myself. So I was kind of 70% sure that I was going to get one of those jobs. So, and then at the end, I noticed that there was one of my somebody that I know, and I wanted to get some tips from him because I was going to. So it was the last stage of the job interview, and usually the last stage you have to talk with the partner, and you need to do good impression because he's the one that's going to hire you, right? So I decided to talk to my guy and get some tips from him how I should do this interview, and he was like, "Oh, what did you do?" And I told him, I'm like, that I was doing artificial intelligence, reinforcement learning stuff, finance, and he was like, "Okay, forget about KPMG and Deloitte. Come to EY. I will fix an interview for you. You will talk with the people in my team because I think you have exactly what we need." So I go on and I do the interview with KPMG, with Deloitte, and then I did with Ernst & Young as well. And I got the offer from Deloitte and Ernst & Young, but I decided to join Ernst & Young because of my friend, but also because of the salary. Yeah. Okay. So to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing at Ernst & Young, I'm a senior consultant there. So I just joined Ernst & Young since last year. So I'm still young. And Ernst & Young, I'm in the Department of Data and Analytics. So we're in the team of technology consulting. So it's a little bit different from economy, but it's the same thing. I mean, like you said, you did a PhD, there's nothing you should fear when you get into those kind of stuff. So in Ernst & Young, what I'm doing currently is like it's been 1 year that I'm at Ernst & Young, but I did a lot of stuff that has stuff to do with economy, with finance, but also things that are typically IT. Okay, for example, if it's software testing, for example, I never heard about software testing before joining Ernst & Young, but you have to learn. And what's good at Ernst & Young is once you get into a mandate, what you need to succeed in this mandate, they will give it to you. You'll have learnings, you'll have people that will support you and help you get the job done, right? And yeah, so he was talking about SaaS. So we at Ernst & Young, we have a partnership with SaaS. So usually on our mandate, we have to sell SaaS to our clients, which are top banks in Canada and United States, or even all over the world. And to do so, you have to master technology because you want to sell them the technology, and also you need to first master the technology and also master the topic. The technology has to be used to solve a given problem, right? The technology has to be used to solve the problem of credit risk. For example, if you want to give a credit, you need to do some analysis with the technology in order to do the job. So you have to master both sides, both the technology and also the topic. So that's it for that. A little bit of what I'm doing at Ernst & Young currently. And to talk about job opportunities, me personally, when I was still doing my PhD, I didn't think about like the consulting jobs. I was focused on the academy, and for me, this is where I need to go. I need to get my paper published. I need to have a good job market paper in order to get the job. But sometimes this is an opportunity that many of us usually we do not explore, right? I understand that there is no time when you are focused on your paper. There's no time to go and see what's going on in the other areas because let's be honest, the PhD is so time consuming. Usually you forget to go and have some fun to entertain yourself. So yeah, but I really believe that this is something that you should also think about, especially for PhD students who have great technical skills. So I think this is something that you should think about. Yeah. So I think that will be it for me. So if you have any questions, I will be really glad to answer. Thank you.
Okay, if you'd like to continue.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. So my name is Jessica. I'm a manager at Analysis Group, or Group d'Analyse. I was planning to talk a lot more about the job, but telling you a little bit more about the path to get to where I am. So I did my PhD in economics at the University of Toronto, and I went on the job market in 2017. So into Analysis Group, it was the job I took off the market, and I've been there since, so 5 years now. Going into, so my background was more, a lot less technical, more empirical. So I was in empirical economics, specifically in urban economics. So I did a lot of data work, and going onto the market, I was pretty sure I did not want to go into academia. I found the PhD a little bit into it. I found it very, very isolating, and not really conducive to the way that I like to work. I'm very much a being around people, collaborating, and so I kept the option open because my advisor wanted me to go into academia, and so I applied across everything, public, private, and academia, and I was very fortunate on the job market. I did come out with a couple of options, and the reason I chose Analysis Group was really because of the interview experience and the colleagues. So it was I was interviewing with people who were a lot like me. They were the similar age, they had similar at least sort of interests, and it just felt much different than coming from an econ background where I was always around like middle-aged men. It was really nice to be around a lot of other people who were younger and women. So that was sort of the main driving force. Also, Montreal is an awesome city, so I was pretty excited to move here. So that was sort of my path to getting into this job. So Analysis Group, we are a private consulting company. We are about 1,200 employees across globally. We're a US-based company, so we have one Canadian location, and it's here in Montreal, a few European locations, and mostly in the US. So what we do is a range of economic and financial consulting. There are a couple different practice areas, and so I'm in the litigation practice, and so I'll tell you a little bit about each of them. But the litigation is we work with law firms to support clients who are undergoing lawsuits for any number of things. So it could be patent infringement or antitrust, so some competitive violations, or a lot of commercial disputes, so just companies who are angry at each other, who sue each other. And we put together economic models for them, a lot of data analysis, and damages calculations. And so there's a huge range of sort of applications of this. And so one of the nice things is I was empirical, and I went into urban economics. I sort of just fell into it. I wouldn't say that my thesis was a passion project. I found a committee that I really liked to work with, and I found some data that allowed me to do my thesis. But to say that I really wanted to go into urban econ and that's what I had to do, that's not the case, right? I like working with data. I liked sort of the applications. I hated coming up with the questions. And so the nice thing about consulting, at least, is you don't have to ever come up with the questions, you just have to come up with the solutions. And the other nice thing is data is handed to you. So no data set is too expensive in private consulting. So those were two really like nice things that I didn't know going into it that ended up being like pretty great perks. So all that to say, like, there's a range of backgrounds that we hire. It's not people who are specifically wanting to go into private. We have a very huge, so the other two practice areas are health economics and outcomes research. So we do a lot of working with pharmaceutical companies on sort of outcomes research of drug trials, clinical drug trials, a lot of the economic burden of various diseases. And we also have a third practice now, which, not gonna lie, I have no idea what they do, is the data science. And it's machine learning is thrown around a lot. So there's these sorts of these three main practice areas, and I'm on the litigation side of it. So what we look for and things to think about if this is for you is having a very sort of varied interest in what you're doing, right? You're going to be put on projects that are not always going to be the most interesting industry, but chance to learn something new. And the big appeal is the colleagues. It's a really amazing group of people. It's very collaborative. You're not, the last 2 pandemic years aside, you're not working in isolation. Now we have this nice like hybrid working from work and home model, but you are very much in a team dynamic. Questions are talked through with colleagues, and you're just sort of not working till midnight, 1 a.m. trying to figure out a bug in your code by yourself. So what we look for is people who are collaborative. These soft skills are really important. So to the same point, by the time you get to the interview process, so we interview based on resumes, the application package, right? So it's the cover letter, your job market paper, and your reference letters. So showing a genuine interest first in going into consulting and the private sector, showing us that you've spent the time to write a personalized cover letter goes a long way. And then once you're in the interview though, at that point, we know you're smart, right? Like we've read your job market paper. We know you're smart. That we want to see if you're somebody that we can work with. And so that includes like recognizing that you're interviewing with a bunch of smart people. I know there's a couple of people, it's happened once, but interviewing people and they think because you're in consulting that maybe you will never understand this model that you did in your thesis. And so just not going into it with that attitude, going into it with like, we're gonna work together, we're gonna be collaborative, and it's really about, are you somebody that I want to spend long hours with? Are you somebody that I want to troubleshoot problems with? So that's sort of keeping that in mind going into the application and then into the interview. But the job is really about having a varied interest in a lot of different industries, a lot of different applications. No one project is the same. We're always trying to put sort of leading economic models or new approaches to solving questions. And so there is a huge amount of needing to stay up on the current research, right? So you're not publishing and you're not doing your own research, but you're still very much following the academic world, which is to say, if you have the time and you want to do your own research on the side, like, good on you. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Okay, so we'll, I think, move on to Lerby.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, but creating. Yeah, okay. Let's go again. Let's try it like this. Okay, sorry. So I'm Lerby. I work for the. Is it off? Oh, the microwave? Okay. So I'm Lerby. I work for the Bank of Canada. Lerby. I'm working for the Bank of Canada. I started in 2017. Did my PhD in Rotterdam. At the Tim Ergun Institute. As boring as it sounds, I did quantitative financial economics. There's 3 panelists here as well. Focused on statistics, on extreme value theory. Did that 4 years, moved to London, did my postdoc there for 3 years at the Systemic Risk Center at the LSE. Amazing place to be. If you choose a postdoc, choose a good institution, you'll get lots of opportunities to write papers and good papers. Data sets will be thrown at you. Amazing people will want to work with you because you're probably the workhorse during a postdoc. And so they're just looking for some additional co-author. Then in 2017, I went to the job market, got a couple of opportunities. One of them was the Bank of Canada, where we're mainly looking, I would say, for someone with good academic potential. We're not necessarily looking for someone who can do policy. We're looking for good researchers, and based on your based on what topic you have, we kind of edge towards you or we don't. And then we will use your whatever research you have. Let's say you do something for the American market because that's more easy to publish. You'll probably write something for the Canadian market so we can learn from it in a Canadian context, and that's going to be probably your policy work. So yeah, I've been there now for 4 years, 5 years. I think we always start the job market with like 400 candidates that generally apply almost everywhere, and one of them is the Bank of Canada. We go through the resume, we look at the topics, we look at where they're from, what the qualities of their papers, and then we know that we're in a very competitive market. We're often competing, well, we're not really competing with the Harvards, but we believe we do, but we're kind of competing with like the University of Toronto, where we're also not really competing with, but with let's say the mid-tier in the US. And so we're looking for really strong academic candidates. And that's often the ones that we hire. So there might be years where we need more candidates than are necessarily directly available of a certain quality. And so we then also look for more applied work as well. Well, applied, I mean, how do you say this? For a wider range of topics. So when we interview people, we often look for their job market paper. Are they good colleagues? It's very easy to show off in your paper your quantitative skills, but what we look for in an interview is often likability to some extent. Can you talk with people? Can you convince people of your ideas? Can you convey it in an easy way? So assume that not everyone is exactly on your topic, and can you still show why your paper is good and why it's special? So that's what we're kind of looking for. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I should convey about my own path. So working at the bank, I would say I would have almost like 60% of my time to do research, and publishing is very important. And if you get hired as a researcher, that's probably what's gonna make your career progress, publishing in good journals. The nice thing about the bank, apart from being in university, is that funding is very easy. If you want to go to conferences, if you need data sets, there's always funding available, and you don't have to apply for it. If you discover during your research at the bank that maybe you want to try policy and that's what you're most interested in, you can easily switch into a more policy-intensive track where we have a lot of PhD researchers that get really high up based on using their academic skills to then become managers and go on along the policy sphere as opposed to the research track. We also have a research track where you basically go from senior researcher to principal, research advisor, and then you become a research director from a department, and then you become, I call it the elephant graveyard, but it's where you don't have to do any policy work anymore and no advisory work anymore. You can just do research, but you're of such a quality that people will lean on you automatically and will come to you for questions. And so there's also a career track within the Bank of Canada for pure researchers, if that's what you want to pursue. So I'm myself not such a social person. I'm very much an introvert. So you can be that at the bank as well. Let's say 4 days a week, and then one day you have to probably work with your colleagues to solve or to explain policy problems, to solve policy problems, which is also a very important skill. If you want to make it within the bank, even as a researcher, you need to be able to convey why your research is interesting for them and what they can learn from it in terms of in terms of monetary policy or creating a more stable financial system within Canada. Yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, just launch them.
Thank you very much. I guess we'll move on to our two panelists who are on Zoom. Jérôme, would you like to start?
Yes. I'll look if I'm able to share my screen. Does it work?
Working?
Yes, great. So I'm Jérôme Gagnon-April. I'm from the Ministère des Finances du Québec. So I got my PhD at Université Laval in Quebec City. And mostly I teach some classes at Université Laval, and I work for the Ministère des Finances full time. I mostly got a job straight after when I graduated in 2016. I never had to go on the job market, so that's good for me because I know that it's not that easy. But yes, the Ministère des Finances post jobs in many universities and in the programs, and I just got the job like that. So at the Ministère des Finances, we obviously have a lot of things to do in economic policy, fiscal policy. We advise the government, but myself, I work at the modeling, climate modeling, economic analysis, and impacts branch. So I work yes, on economic analysis for the government to advise the government in fiscal policy and in economic policy, but I work a lot on climate change policies. So the government of Quebec published the plan for a green economy. He published also the 2022-2027 implementation plan of the 2030 plan for green economy. The government also published the 2024-2030 free allocation rules of GHG emission allowances. So that's the thing that we do in my branch. We offer also a lot of support to other branches and departments. I worked in a team that is very. It's a bit a strange team at the Ministère des Finances because we are really more oriented to in modeling, obviously, and climate change to environmental issues, while the other people at Ministère des Finances don't work in those issues usually, but it becoming a lot more popular these times. The team that with which I'm working, we are about 10 people who develop models that are used to project GHG emissions, the impact of the policies on the economy. We have PhD economists. We got physicists, engineers. I think we're on the team of 10 people. We have 4 PhDs and 6 people with a master's degree. So this is the team. So we don't go on the job market because, like I just said, we're not a big team of PhD economists. We are 2 economists with a PhD, 1 physicist and 1 engineer with a PhD. And we also collaborate with consulting firms to develop the model. So actually, our models are pretty very detailed and complex. And we got a model Sequence, which is an energy optimization tool. So we work really on it actually produces projection of GHG emissions over the long term. It measures different reduction potentials to meet the 2030 target and also the carbon neutrality in 2050, and it quantifies the measures of the 2030 plan for a green economy. This model is based on the Times model generator, which is sponsored by the International Energy Agency. We also have another model, which is that I will go straight ahead, which is a computable general equilibrium model. So we, in fact, we have a macroeconomic model, just a computable general equilibrium model, and we also have a technical model, which is very focused on energy. So we got those two models that we link together. So the macroeconomic perspective is given by the CGE model. This is a top-down approach. So we know, okay, by doing this policy, we got like 2% of decrease in the production of this industrial sector. And so we got things like that. And with the model Sequence, so the optimization model, we have a bottom-up approach. So we got the very detailed production function. So we really are in the simulation approach, and the advantage of having this bottom-up approach is to have a very complex production function for each industry that we have in the province of Quebec. So we can really, it's not the good old Cobb Douglas function. It's really more complicated than that, and we have a lot of technology that do not exist now, or that do not exist in large scale now, but that we know that could be a thing in 2040, for example. So we have those technologies. We have something like more than 100 technologies that are in the model. By linking these two models, we just go by iterating between them until we got a convergent solution to give the GHG emission and the economic data like GDP, labor workforce, so on. So the role of an economist at the Ministère des Finances, and also the role of a PhD, which is more what is the focus on this of this event, is like people like a lot of people said before, it's important to get cognitive ability and analytical skills, but you know, you have a PhD, so we know that you have probably those skills. I expect that you have those skills, but what we need to know if you are able to express your idea in a very simple way, because we work with like the minister, the minister of finance. He is an economist, so that's good. But he is more oriented toward banking and you know, interest rates and things like that. So when you talk about the technical function of production in an industry in a given model, he needs to understand what you're saying simply. So you really have to develop your synthesis skills. So I think that it's really more what we need to know when we have a new employee or future potential employee. Written communication is very important. We have to inform the minister and the people, our managers. So we have to advise them, and we have to advise them. You know, the Minister of Finance has a lot of things to cover. So obviously he has maybe you need to explain a very complex thing to him in like one page. So it must be very simple, but also you have to say the truth. You have to say the exact thing. You have to be you have to cover a lot of ground, but very simply. So this is, I think, what is the most special skill that you can have if you want to work at the Ministère des Finances and at the government. You need to be able to express yourself in an easy way, in a way that everybody will understand what you're saying. Obviously, at the Ministère des Finances, the official language is in French. If you speak English, it's pretty. It could be very interesting. As you see, my English is not that good, so if you are better than me in English, it's great. But French writing skills and French speaking skills are really more used at English. So I think that's that for me.
Thank you very much. And lastly, we'll have Eric, if you'd like to start.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. So thank you very much for the invitation. Like the other people said, maybe I will start with my background so that maybe people will know from where I come from. So I have a background in mathematics. So I studied mathematics back then in Africa, and then I moved to Senegal to study statistics, and then I applied to a PhD in Canada. And actually, I remember back then I got an admission also in U Laval. So I chose to go in U Montreal then. So during my PhD, I specialized in econometrics and finance. So those were my two fields of specialization. So I worked on that, doing my research as all PhD students do. So when I reached now the end of my PhD, so it was about going on the market to get a job. So, but before starting about the job market, I should say that job market is more about what you need, what you want, and you need to be sure about what you want, not about what your advisor wants you to do, not about what the other people would want you to do. You need to be certain of what you need and what you want. So it should be about you because that's your future. So for me personally, when I was a year before going to the market, so we were like 1 year before going. So because I had that idea of joining the fund when I started my PhD, actually that's one of the reasons why I did a PhD. So, you know, each year the fund, I mean, back then it wasn't because we have a corona situation now, but back then the fund used to come to Montreal every year. So back then they were supposed to come in Montreal. So I wasn't on the market yet. So, but I told my advisor I wanted to apply just to see what it is to talk with fund economists, to learn a bit about the job. And then that will get me prepared for the next year. So he didn't really like the idea, but he was kind enough to accept the idea because he thought, okay, that would be a good exercise also for him. So I get because they were coming to UDEM, so I didn't have to, we all did the preliminary interview, like discussing with them. But I was lucky enough, so they selected me for the panel for for the final panel here in DC. So they had to fly me in. So I remember discussing with the advisor. It was like, if they recruit you, will you go? And I was like, yeah, I will go if they recruit me. So I came in Washington, I did my interview, it went well, and I finally got the offer. So I didn't go to the market, I just have that one application and they hired me. But I was certain that I wasn't doing a mistake, because that was what I wanted to do when I joined UDEM to do my PhD. So I didn't have any kind of conflictual thinking like, okay, maybe by just waiting to go on the market next year, you will be able to land in maybe an academic job or maybe a better job. Of course, I still had those people were saying that to me, and my advisor told that to me, that next year you will have plenty of opportunities. Why don't you wait? And I was like, no, I'm certain about what I'm doing. And I just accepted the offer. So for when you are at that juncture of your life, you need to be sure about what you want. I think that's the most important. And I think a lot of PhD students generally miss that, because we get entangled in all the PhD environment, because you don't see a lot of people. You just discuss with people that have the same way of seeing life. So you get lost on that. And some are sometimes at the end, they are really kind of, you have some disappointment. So the first thing and the most important thing is about what you want. And when you're certain about what you want, you will be able to take your decision without any conflictual view, without any conflictual thinking. That's the most important. So now, what is it to work at the fund? So I joined the fund in 2018. Of course, when I accepted the offer, I wasn't close to finish my paper, so I had to rush. So I remember I finished those papers and I submitted my PhD thesis like 5 days before taking my flight to DC. So it was a rush, very rough transition. So, but when I joined, he was just like what I had imagined, like walking. Because back then in Africa, we had that idea of the fund, like the other institution that come and work with government. Sometimes they give them money. You have that, of course, but you have also two other parts that are important, which is the first one is about the continuous assessment of the economic situations in countries, but also the technical assistance, which is also big at the fund. So what is for me working at the fund? So when I joined the fund in 2018, so I was first in the African department working on Zambia. So the way the fund structure his teams is that you have for each country you have a team of 3, 4, 5 economists, and each economist will be in charge of a sector. You have the real, the BOP, the external, the fiscal. So you will be given a sector in which you will kind of specialize working on it on a daily basis. So my journey was, in the morning, I was reading newspaper from Zambia because I was working on the Zambia desk. Newspaper from Zambia, trying to get the best assessment of the situation in the field, and doing my assessment based on the data we received on the daily basis. Of course, back then, and still Zambia had huge issues. We had to assess that. We had to monitor that on a daily basis. And we had to go from time to time on mission to discuss with them in order to see if they will accept, or they will want a program or things like that. So that was my first assessment on Zambia. And then after a year and a half, because I joined as a MEP, so I had to move to another department after 1 year and a half. So I went to SPR, which is the department in which I'm still today. So I moved to SPR, which is the Strategy, Policy and Review Department in the Strategy Unit. That's the unit in charge of covering the G20, the G7, the Managing Director Global Policy Agenda, which is the strategy for the Managing Director for the year to come. So that's the division in which I'm right now. Specifically, I cover the IFA, the G20 IFA. I worked on the general review of quota, which is something internal. You know that the fund is what we call a quota-based institution. So we need to make sure that the power, I will call it like that, The financing power associated with each country reflects its economic position. So every 5 to 5 years, we review those quotas to make sure that the distribution reflect actually the economic power. I worked also on the general, the special drawing route, the latest SDR allocation. And at the same time, I've been involved as an SPI economist for Mauritania, in which I covered the financing. They had a program. I covered that program. And also now I'm the SPI economist for Ethiopia. So more broadly, working at the IMF involves a different kind of things, because you have the policy work you do. Of course, you work on the country, but you can also do research, of course, because you have your time. You can use your time as you want. But the policy works is not something that is straightforward, in the sense that that's not a box. Generally, when we talk about policy work, you have a broad things can go to something related to the fiscal policy, something related to the monetary policy, something related to more structural issues. So it's very broad when we talk about policy work. And that's why actually when you join a team, when they give you access actually to or responsibility to a specific sector, you learn on that sector, and then eventually you will move on to another sector. So that's very broad, and that's something I like. And that's something I like very much, because actually you have to, you can learn different things and you can work on different issues. That's very interesting. Research work, I've been involved in a lot of research projects. I mean, it's not exactly what I did in my PhD, in the sense that I was more a theoretician, but I was involved in a lot of things. I do econometrics in the project I'm involved in at the fund, but I work specifically on child marriage. That was the first paper. And then I work also on climate change and things like that. And also in the SDR allocation, in which we were trying to see if the allocation will have an inflationary impact or not. So research, you always have some time to do research. Of course, you have some spare time also, so you can invest those in doing research. So you have research. We also have a research department, which is very productive. And if you're more interested in doing research on a daily basis, you will go there, and you will be fine actually. But personally, I prefer the operational work, the policy work, because it involves a lot of things, being practical, thinking about the real issues, trying to provide solution to the real issues countries are having right now. That's very interesting, because when you discuss with the politicians, he wants to have an answer to a question that is present. He doesn't want you to give him like theoretical background or things like that. He doesn't care about that. For him, it's about, I have an issue, how do you fix that? And how do you fix that? And how do I present that solution so that people will actually buy that solution? Because sometimes it's not about providing the solution. Solution is not equal to another. It's about providing the solution that will be actually feasible and that will actually come with the least cost possible. And when I'm talking about cost, I'm talking about economic cost, I'm talking about social cost, I'm talking about political cost. That's something very difficult to do. And when you think, generally, when you're not in that kind of environment, you cannot, maybe you don't understand it, but when you discuss with those people, like at the central bank, when you discuss with the central bank governor, with the Minister of Finance, you will have those questions. And for him, it's not about, okay, let's just do this and that because the theory wants. No, it's more about, okay, what is the practical way of doing that? And by doing so, will it solve the issue? Sometimes the assessment is not great. I mean, we all know that 20, 30 years ago, the fund had a history of maybe some issues. The policy implemented back then maybe didn't provide the result that were actually targeted. But that's okay, because it's all about acknowledging the mistakes, acknowledging that actually maybe that policy doesn't work and correct right away. That's the most important thing to do. So on a daily basis, that's why I do. Now, my tip, if I want to say, if I want to provide some kind of advice for people that are interested in working in those institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, and I think those are very interesting work. But I should say that you need to be sure that you really want to work in those institutions. And if so, then you will probably like it because the job is interesting. It's not a monotonic job. So what I do right now is totally different to what I did 6 months ago. And in 1 year, when I will want to change, I will change. I will go to another position, to another department, to another division. So generally, there's no issue in doing that. And you kind of rotate, kind of change. So the experience is just great. So if you want to work to those institutions, it's just about having those open mind, being open-minded, being willing to learn also from people that have different background, because that's the most important. At the fund, we have people that are specialized in macro or in micro and econometrics, and you have sometimes you handle projects in which you have to deal with the lawyers. That's the last project I was working in. I was dealing with lawyers and people from the finance department. They have different perspectives on things. So you need to make sure that you bring them together, you walk through the objective you have. So that's very interesting. And I think if you are open-minded, that's a job you would like to do. And I like it. So that's for the first advice I wanted to give. The second advice in terms of what you can do in order if you land an interview, I think I had that's the question I always receive from people. I mean, at the fund, we are interesting to people that are, as I say, open-minded, but also that can provide kind of that intuitive economic analysis. Because economics that's a social science. You have that part about the political economy, the intuitive economic thinking. That's very important. If you want to be what we call here a fungible economist, you need to get that. It's not about your model. It's not about it's more about what your skills as an economist. Do you understand economy? When you see a few economic data, are you able kind of to provide some insight from them? That's the most important. And for an interview, I think all people that land an interview at the fund, I think they are capable of doing well at the interview. It's not about reading specific things it's just about being yourself and knowing that actually you need to demonstrate that you can be that fungible economist. That's the most important thing for us and for this job. So that's the second advice I wanted to provide. The last advice maybe is about that inclusive environment we are here at the fund. That's very interesting also. If you like working in an inclusive environment, there's no better place than international institutions. I mean, so many nationalities, differences. So for some that can be intimidating, but for me, I like it. So because you learn from difference, basically. And that's something also to keep in mind. If you like those kind of international environment, that will be a great job for you. Of course, we used to have kind of that lifestyle about traveling, missions, not so much recently because of the COVID, but that's something that is resuming progressively. So also if you like traveling, I think travel are resuming. That's also something to keep in mind if you're interested. So I think working at the fund is a mix of policy work, research also, because we do research, but oriented policy, and also the ability to work in that kind of inclusive environment. This is very important. I think those are the main elements I wanted to share with you. I'm open for your question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. So we're going to move into the question and answer period of this. One question I had gotten on Zoom to everyone was how important or how imperative is it to have the ability to speak French?
Restart again? Okay. So when it's on the resume, French speaking, we kind of pay extra attention to the resume because it's not often that you get a French speaker apply and being of a certain quality. Most important thing is, of course, the quality of the student, but it does make us really comb through the resume to see what is in the resume. So it's important for us.
Not important. I'd say like 99.9% of the work we do is in English. We're an American company, so a lot of the companies or the companies and the law firms that we work with are in the US. That said, I'd say probably like 70% of our office is Francophone. So for the like in-office camaraderie and like chatting with your colleagues, that is often in French. But I don't speak French, so it's definitely not necessary.
For the financial industry, the banks, even National Bank, Banque Laurentienne, you do speak French, but I think English is more important because in modeling, validation teams, all the reports are in English. Even when you submit them to the regulation, OSFI, it is in English. So the requirement is English, the French, yeah. Yeah, it's cool, it's cool.
So I think same thing here. So everything with our clients do speak English, so you have to interact with them in English. So all the decks you have to produce, all the files you have to send them, it has to be in English, except from one client. So I think, okay, so I can say the name. Deja, okay. Yeah, so beside this client, who for this client, everything has to be in French. I mean, like, even the CVs, the decks you have to send to the client, to this client has to be in French. Beside this client, every other client you have to interact with them in English.
Would either of the two panelists on Zoom like to chime in?
Yeah, I can. Like I said before, in the government of Quebec, it's not just important; it's mandatory. But you know, if you're an Anglophone or just not a Francophone, we want to put you in place where we can use your skills at their best. So if it's not your best quality to speak or to write in French, we want to put you in place to write 50 pages report. But it's important. It's mandatory.
Maybe I can chip in to say, of course, at the fund we work in English, but we need people speaking various languages, different languages. So that's a plus if you speak French. So maybe that I'm not answering the question, but just to say that speaking French is something that will give you additional leverage if you want to join the fund. So as speaking Spanish or other languages, because when you go on mission, you speak in that language of the country. And so even if we work in English, we have to speak French, Spanish, Italian, or whatever when we go on mission.
Thank you very much. Does anybody here have a question they'd like to ask at the microphone? There's a mic just there. Oh, okay.
Hello. Hi, I'm Min. I'm from New Jersey, US. I go to Rutgers University. I'm here to present my job market paper. I'm in my 5th year. I'm going on the market in the fall. My question is, like some of you mentioned, I'm in the process focusing on my own job market paper, nothing else. I'm but worried about job market. So what would you do if you were me in this time? Would you focus on your job market paper, or you gonna study like different stuffs or practice interviews, things like that? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Panelists?
I'd say 100% keep focusing on your job market paper. We definitely look at them. They're the most important piece of an application package. For the interviews, we don't do any sort of like cases or anything. It's a normal interview. We go through the same process as the academic market. So when you go to the AEAs to do the interviews, you would apply to at least AG and other consulting as well through that. So the job market paper is still considered the most important piece of your application package. And then when it comes time to submitting your application, just tailor the cover letter to show you've got an interest in consulting.
Okay, another.
Yeah, at this point, the job market paper is still your focus. Like Eric said, it depends on what you want, right? If you want to be in the academia focus, even if you want to be in the industry, they will still ask you about your job market paper. So you still have to polish it as much as possible.
I think what candidates often often underestimate is how well you do in the interview. Interviewing itself is a challenge as well. Like, I didn't have many interviews, but apparently I was really good at interviewing, and so I converted almost all my interviews into flyouts. And so probably like 2 months before at least the market starts, like just go over, have your 20-minute talk, have your 2-minute talk, your 5-minute talk, your 20-minute talk, and maybe your half an hour talk, and practice it, write it all down until you become very confident in it. And then you can riff once you have a good base, of course. But that's often what we see go wrong, is that really good job market paper, not able to convince in the interview. And once you fly out, you have a bit more time to show how smart you are.
Would either of the Zoom panelists want to chime in?
Yeah, maybe I can add something about the job market paper. I think that's very important, because that basically kind of our business card as a PhD student. I got my job a year before going to the job market, but I already had my job market paper ready, because you need that whether for each application you need that paper. So you need to focus on that. You make sure that the paper is clean. Make sure that you can present that paper to people. They can understand what you're doing, and get ready. But that's the main focus when you're a PhD student, that job market paper, yes.
Thank you very much. Another question we had on Zoom was, are places like the bank and the consulting groups, are you guys looking for theorists that aren't of either finance or more econometrics? So I guess maybe more something like micro theory.
So we have a CEA, which is the Canadian Economic Analysis team, which hires over a broad range of fields. And so there's theory people, there's empirical people of different fields. Also within the other groups, like I think we're now shifting a little bit more towards climate risk. And so that means that we need econometricians, we need probably people who do something with climate change. And so topics kind of shift sometime and become sometimes more important. So we're looking for a broad range. And in general, we're just looking for really good candidates. So if you are a really good candidate and you have an off topic, you still have a really good chance of making it.
For the finance industry, it's in a bank, the large banks in Canada, Export Development Canada, where I work, it is important. There are groups that hire mostly economists. There are other groups that will hire other quants. So usually the intersection between those other fields like mathematics or physics that will participate in the same interview as you would be the quantitative aspect. So for some teams like mine, where you assess models for capital, for credit, market, and things like that, the strongest aspect is the quant size. Probably that we wouldn't hire a policy analyst in validation, because at the end we want him to be able to challenge different kind of models. So probably in his PhD he would have spent too much time on policy to be able to compete with a PhD in physics or things like that. But at the same time, in a meeting for a model of credit, for example, credit risk, there is an economist who will tell us about the scenarios. So a macroeconomist can actually really well perform in this kind of group. So it's pretty wide. The possibilities are broader than just programming or quant. You have to be able to adapt and do multiple things. Yeah.
Okay, so in the from what I've seen in the consulting industry, I think you do not have to have like a specific skill to get hired there. Either you are really theory in the theory, or really quant, really like using the statistical software, dealing with real data, all those things. I think either you, even if you're doing the theory or the quant side, you have all your chances. The only thing you need to have in mind is the fact that you will have to learn. If you're willing to learn, you will succeed in the consulting industry, because everything is there, everything is given to you, so that you can grow, you can improve your skills and everything. So if you're willing to learn, I think this is all that you need, plus a little bit of skills in Excel. That's all you need to perform in consulting.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else? Raphael?
Hi, thank you. I'm Raphael Zambado, fourth-year PhD at HEC. I have a question concerning the rise of big data and machine learning models, especially for the consulting or even banks or Bank of Canada. I'm wondering what role you see for economists in that area. You mentioned that you have a machine learning division in your data analysis group. I was wondering, especially for consulting as well, could an economist be a part of a team like this who has already machine learning experience and big data analytics?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing with machine, so I work on the litigation side of things, and one of the things that we have to keep in mind with litigation is we're always going to be putting these reports in front of judges. And so to be doing something that is really new and novel is a little bit harder to convince the lawyers that or counsel that this is the way to go with this project. We do have this data science practice where they are building these machine learning algorithms. And I actually worked on one project related to natural language processing. And so it was related to, we scraped a lot of reviews for a particular product from Amazon. And we were looking for sentiment in these things. So these are, it's not so much being used yet in the litigation context, but we're definitely building this up because we see this being a big way that we'd be able to make strides once there's sort of a little bit more precedent for it. So all that to say, it's definitely, there is room for it. We want people who have that background. I don't think we're building it. We won't have a lot of sort of openings in that area yet. It's just somewhere that's relatively new, at least on our end.
Okay, me personally, I'm working in, like I said, technology consulting, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And I do believe that an economist has his place in this sector, because usually all these models are just big stuff that are going to use big data and produce some results. But at the end, what's needed is how are you going to interpret this thing? And this is what the clients want from you. There are some clients who really want the technology, that's all. But there are some clients who want from you how you're going to do the, like how you're going to interpret the data that are going to come from all these big models. Because this is what they need to convince their executive team. So this is, so that's all I can say. So an economist with his ability to interpret the data and all those things is really needed in the consulting industry.
And also in our training, we have been exposed to so much from the bachelor to the PhD that, I got candidates that had a bachelor, and then they took Coursera courses and familiarized themselves with natural language processing and things like that. And they will just show up to the interview and try to talk about it. Unfortunately for them, in my team or team like mine, we challenge models. So in validation team, what happens is that in any financial institution, we would receive all the models from the institution, and we would challenge them to see how strong they are and what they represent in terms of risk and things like that. So you will have marketing models, you'll have markets risk, credit risk, and so on. So then you go in the direction where you want to see how they understand the regression. What they just know how to interpret the T-stat, and they show up to the interview. It may work for front end jobs, business, but not for a team where you are the one who should challenge the guy who is interpreting his T-stats, right? So.
Thank you very much. Does any of our Zoom panelists have something to add? I'm taking that as a no.
I could say maybe something for the bank. We have a project, for instance, where we look at video images of press conferences of central banks, and we need someone with a PhD to ask the questions. Can we get any information out of those press conferences and see how the markets react to certain facial expressions, and so we need someone who's able to do the visual analysis. But she also came up with the question. So tools are cool. If you have good questions that you can answer with those tools and show that those are the tools to use, you're golden.
Maybe I can add a few things on that. Regarding machine learning, I mean, that's a very powerful tool. And I think we had a contest a few days ago on machine learning related applied to climate change or something like that. I think the 6 or the 5 winner teams, they all got, I think, $50,000. So yeah, that's something the fund has been applying in his frameworks. And if you master it, if you're good at it, that's something, of course, you will be able to apply at the fund, because we have a lot of projects involving machine learning, tech mining, and all those new tools that are developed in the statistical front. So yes, those are powerful tools, and those can be applied because we all know that those can be applied everywhere, basically. So it's just a matter of being creative, and if you land somewhere in which those are not applied yet, you can create that kind of dynamic, because those are things, I think, as an econometrician, I think that big data will take over in the next few years. So, and you know that econometrics has been applied everywhere. There's no way you cannot do econometrics. And I think we will see the same trend for data mining, for big data. So that's something to keep in mind also if you're interested in those things.
Thank you very much. The next question from Zoom is there one skill you wished you'd learned during your PhD before you went on the market?
Social skills. I guess I can continue. I mean, when you get like a mathematician coming to an interview, you go like, oh, I wish I had those skills. But that's because I want to be a mathematician. But that's probably not the skill that would be most beneficial for me. It's probably some of the soft skills during the PhD. But I don't know how much you can learn soft skills as opposed to just, yeah, maybe it's just practice. So maybe the drinks after will help you. Well, either they'll help you learn them, or whatever you consume will help you pretend or fake them. Yeah, I think it's probably the social skills, which are like I think it's undervalued. Like for sometimes it's I think there's some institutions that can look through them and they go like, oh no, actually they're maybe just bad at communicating, but their papers are really good, and the communication part we can teach and we can help them polish papers, and but the technical part we cannot really help, like the person has it or doesn't have it. So sometimes if you can acquire the social skills, help someone give you feedback on them, or the soft skills. I shouldn't call them social skills, soft skills, then yeah, that's a big plus.
Say, it would have been nice to learn that going into industry is not lesser than academia. This was definitely something that we get sort of like pushed on us a bit, is to go into academia, and obviously our advisors and our committees want us to be colleagues and people we can collaborate with in the future. But there are just really amazing opportunities outside of academia. And I think those get sort of pushed to the side a lot more than they should.
My friends outside of academia who kind of were going for the PhD and then went out are probably much happier than I am. So like you have like this tunnel vision when you're in the PhD, and I still have it, and I don't know how to get rid of it, but you definitely have a certain tunnel vision. And I know that he's very, like most of my friends that stepped out, very happy people.
Would either of our Zoom panelists want to chime in some skill they wish they had gotten before?
For me, it will be, sorry,
No,
Jérôme.
no, go.
Oh, sorry. So for me, I would say the writing skills, something think we should, as a PhD student, maybe we should invest more in learning how to write, like properly, like writing skills are something very important. And I think, of course, this is tied to the communication skills everyone is talking about. It's very important to know how to speak, to know how to write, because even if you have top-notch research, if you're not able to communicate the result very friendly, very efficiently, I mean, those are useless. So I think writing and speaking also are very important skills to develop during those PhD years. And that's a shame, because generally as a PhD student, you focus so much on what you do on a technical point, that sometimes you kind of neglect those other points, and it bites you or it fires back on the job market. So those are skills to develop throughout the PhD years. Jérôme?
Yes, thank you. So actually, you lost you stole what I wanted to say. So, yes, the communication skills, I think, are what it's not really. It's tough in PhD, but it's not that much. Focused on, and I'd say that maybe this is something that I'm good at, explaining simple, complex thing in a simple way. But this is not something that a lot of PhD students are good at, and it is something that I remark a lot, that you have someone in an interview and you just ask him, explain what you're doing. It's your job market paper. I explain what it is in like 5 minutes, and it goes like very complex very quickly. And we're like, no, can you focus? Just explain me like I'm 5. So and it's not easy, I think, to do that for many people.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to ask a question?
I may just react on that. Yeah, it's so true that in our PhD, we spend time writing papers and we feel like, oh, this went to a journal. We are so good at writing. We write theorems, we write things like that. But then you want to reply to email at the beginning of your career, and you feel like, how do I explain that to? You always think about how you write that email concisely so that it carries the right information. So communications is really key. Even if you know how to write papers, it doesn't mean that you're good at organizational communication. So you really have to develop that part. And like Jérôme said, I had that question in one interview, and the guy asked me, what makes your thesis so special? And you spent 5 years working on that chapter. And I was like, this is difficult because actually it's so theoretical. They are not interested by that. They probably selected me for the interview for my first paper, but my third paper was so theoretical that they don't want that. So it's really something you have to polish and find a way to improve. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There was a question.
Yeah.
Here.
Can we get a mic? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yushi. I'm a student at McGill. So I would like to know, for working at the Bank of Canada, so doing research, is it more collaborative, as Jessica mentioned, in the industry, or is it like more isolated, like working in the academia or somewhere in between? And the second question is that, does the Bank of Canada offer some more operational work like IMF for PhD students? Yeah.
The second part of the question
is like more operational work instead of doing research, more like policy analysis, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's definitely PhD students that got hired because they wanted to focus on policy work, and they conveyed that. And there was a specific position open that kind of needed that. So we have, of course, models of the economy. It's sometimes difficult for master students to get a good handle on it. So you need people with a PhD to kind of handle those models. So that's partially the operational part of it. So yeah, we do hire people that immediately have a preference for policy. And now I'm thinking what your first question was.
like for doing research in Bank of Canada is like more collaborative, like you have lots of teamwork like in the industry, or it's like more individual work like we do as a graduate students?
So for me, I'm more of an introvert, so I like being on myself and like thinking through ideas. You have other researchers who like to work in teams, and I would say if you want to be the collaborative researcher, there's like 80 or 90 people with PhDs that do research, and it's very easy to find someone that does something very similar to you, or where you can help them understand the problem they're tackling, and so you can co-author with them. And then within the bank, it's very easy to find people and go sit in a room and work on stuff. Like I think when I was back in Ottawa, and I now live in Montreal, but when I was back in Ottawa, I think maybe a quarter of my time was just sitting with a co-author, like working stuff out on a whiteboard and stuff. So it's whatever you prefer. I'm more of an like caveman, I guess, where I have to sit down, work out proofs, and if someone interrupts me, I give them a glance very quickly, like, why are you interrupting me? But there's also the other research, and there's space for that. And to some extent, you'll probably be more successful if you're of the social type where you're collaborating, because that also means that it's very easy for you to collaborate with people who are not researchers, and you can help them understand their policy problems from your perspective. And so it probably makes you, the probability that you're then successful at the bank is higher when you're a social person, or a collaborator. I shouldn't say social person.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
The next question we had on Zoom is, how important is it to have citizenship or permanent resident status in the recruitment process?
Apparently I talk a lot, okay. So for us, we go to the Canadian job market, the CA, which is this year in Banff, I think. I think it's in Banff. If it's not, that's okay. So we go there to hire, like that's where we first go to, and we mainly invite people with Canadian citizenship, permanent residency, or who are at Canadian universities. We're first looking for a specific candidate, and if they have a PR status or a Canadian citizenship, makes it easier. So if we have two PhD students which are very similar in quality, we'll go for sure for the one with the PR status or the Canadian citizenship status. I was hired in the US, in the job market there. I didn't have any Canadian citizenship, but I had a particular skill set which was needed. And so I got hired, and it's not that that's like the biggest issue, but there is a preference if students are of equal quality, which it rarely happens, of having someone being almost equal.
At Export Development Canada, we're a crown corporation like Bank of Canada. So the same applies, yeah. For the other banking, large banks, of course, everything is on the table. It's a business, and they want the best for their team. So it's really funny when you go to an interview and you thought that the whole institution speaks French, but because you have that skill set and you speak only English, it doesn't matter. They will hire you and they will give you a French classes to adapt. Yeah. So yeah, it's not. In the business, they don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, in the business, especially in Canada, as far as you're able to work, I mean, like either you have your working permit, your PR, or if you're Canadian, you can get hired. But it's better to have your permanent residence card or to be a Canadian, because usually as a consultant, you need to work with client data. And sometimes it's really sensitive data. So you need to have some, I can say, some credentials. You need to go through some screening in order for the client to trust you enough to give you his data. So I will say, to get hired, you don't need your PR, or you don't need to be a Canadian. But to work for some clients, you do need those two things.
I have no idea how hard it is to work without your permanent residency or citizenship. I know most of the employees are PR or Canadian citizens. I also know that we have employees who are on work permits, but I have zero insight into how that happens.
And would either of our Zoom panelists have something to add?
Yep, at the government of Quebec, it's mandatory to have to be in the en route to have a PR, so to have a request for PR. But once you have that, it's okay.
At the fund, as an international institution, no restriction with regard to PR or your nationality. Just apply. We are happy to welcome you wherever you come, so it's okay. And I should say that we have those because we call them underrepresented areas. So for people coming from maybe countries in Africa or Middle East or Asia or things like that, so those are most welcome to apply also. So we don't have any restriction. When you arrive here at the fund, you're given a G4 visa, which is a diplomatic visa. So yeah, of course, it might be restrictive for some. Some may say it's a restrictive visa, but I like it very much because you have a lot of privilege. So yeah.
Thank you. Is there any more questions in the room?
Thank you very much. My name is Marius. I'm from Université de Montréal. My question is for Lerby. For the Bank of Canada, do you like value much the feeds in which the job market paper is written? Like, do I have to be in macroeconomics, or does my job market paper has to be in policy that the bank is interested in before I apply? Or I can be from any field as far as I can be a fungible economist, like Magnim said.
So there's 6 departments. One is currency, for instance, which is about exchange rates and that kind of stuff. So that is already a big field, macro exchange rates. We have also models that are general equilibrium models. So if you're a general macroeconomist who works out these DSGE models, you're fine too. We have many econometricians. I'm a statistician with a finance background. We have those too. We have people who do urban economics in the CA department. So there's a very wide variety of topics. What generally happens, you apply to the bank, goes into a central system, there's 400 applications. And when I was in the process of going through all the resumes, you just look, oh, I'm in the financial market department, I want something on maybe market liquidity or some, and you just go through them, and sometimes you think, oh, this is actually a different topic, I didn't think about it, oh, it's interesting, put it aside, oh, this is a good candidate, put it aside. And so sometimes you have in the more general econ groups, you have people doing urban, gender economics, or something that is, but they're just generally very good at it. We have a couple with cybersecurity, doing theoretical models on cybersecurity. So I think there's no topics where we don't hire in, there's just some topics where it's more likely to be hired. Yeah, but if you have a good thesis, if you're a good candidate, then you should always apply. You should always apply anyway to every institution, but we always look at everyone.
Thank you. We have another Zoom question. And is it okay to be over-specialized as a PhD, or for industry positions, is it better to have a more like broad knowledge base?
I feel like by the time you get through your PhD, we're all a little over-specialized. I think it's the skill sets are transferable across subjects. But like, for example, my thesis was on like gentrification in New York City. Like it was very much specific to Manhattan and labor market movements around the borough. So it was very specific, and now I'm working in like industry across like multiple fields. So I think to some degree we are all like over-specialized in our theses. But it's having the skill sets that are transferable. So knowing how to manipulate data, or knowing how to work with data, and how to program and write, and all of these synthesize research, literature reviews, all of these sorts of skills are transferable across subjects.
So in consulting, I would say that when you're starting, right? When you're starting, it's good for you to be specialized in something. I mean, like, it's good for you to, for example, if in the team we want someone for cloud computing, for example, we know who we are going to call. So when you're starting, it's better for you to have, let's say, 2 or 3 area where we know that you are the guy we will call if we need somebody. But as you climbing the ladder, it's good for you to be really broad, because at some point you won't be doing the technical job, but you need to understand everything about it, so that someone like me cannot fool you.
Over specialization give you the edge, right? So for sure, doing a PhD, you do so many things. We have been talking about DSG models. I learned that in my master or things like that, but I never used it, right? But I don't know when I will need it. So funny enough, this morning I had a training session from Azure DevOps. I never knew that I would use that, right? So the thing is, you don't know what to expect. They're hiring a PhD because they know he can adapt, right? So keep that in mind. And while over specializing, I don't think about something trendy that people need. Don't do something that is already past, right? So think usefulness of things you do. Yeah.
Jérôme, Eric, would either of you have something to add?
I'd say that even professors they begin as over specialized in a very specific subject, and once they have the full tenure, they go, oh yeah, I'm interested in that subject, and I will do research in this subject. So I think that it's the same thing for us. It's when we hire someone, we want very specific set of skill, and we want this person to be able to we work on those technical economic models. So we want someone who works in this, and who will be able to work very quickly on our models. But once you're in it, you can learn something else, and you have to be open to work on something else that what you studied.
Maybe to add to what Jérôme just said, I think what he just said is key, like being open to work on something else. I think not being over specialized is not an issue per se, because you build some knowledge in one sector, you can always use that. There's not an issue with that. And actually, in my institution, we have a lot of people that are over specialized. We have a career path that we call experts. So we kind of financial expert. We have experts like fiscal experts. So those are guys that are over specialized. They are not what we call here fungible economists. They're just looking to those things. So being over specialized is not an issue as long as you are open-minded enough so that you can work with people that do not think like you. I think that's the key here, because even in all areas, you will have to at some point to look over what you specialized into, even in academia, because in the academia, if you join the university and you start writing a bunch of paper in a field, by the time you reach the tenure, I mean, they will ask you to do something else. You cannot build a 20-year career working paper on asset pricing. Like, that's not possible. You need to build, like, have ramification to that field so that people will be interested in reading your paper and in publishing your papers. So I think that's the key, like being open-minded so that you can work with people that come from different horizons, and that could help you actually build more knowledge in something else and be specialized in those other sectors. I think don't look being over-specialized as an issue, just be open-minded. And if you're open-minded, you'll be able to work in any kind of environment.
Sorry, I think one good exercise to do for your job market, like I'm a specialist, like I'm statistics, but I'm in a policy environment. You need to be able to kind of zoom out of your job market paper, go from very specific statistics to the Econ 101 class. And if you're able to kind of zoom out from your job market paper into easy economics, easy demand curves, or general effects which you see in the economy, if you're able to do that and you're able to explain that to your interviewees, then like that process takes time. Like, it's not an easy exercise. I'm not saying it's an easy exercise, but if you can do that exercise where you can go back, or what's the general economic effect of what I found, you'll see that even if you're super specialized and if you're able to zoom out, it doesn't matter that you're super specialized, because you can just explain to people why it matters what you're doing and for who it matters. And then your specialization does, or how specialized you are, doesn't really matter. It's just, yeah, if you're very specialized, it's sometimes difficult to zoom out, but that's the hurdle to overcome.
Thank you. Do we have any more in-person questions? Let's get you a mic.
Test one, okay. Is it, if one just has to focus on income, is PhD worth it?
We all economists, right? First I said, I think so. Then I realized that it's lifetime income, right? So you have to capitalize on all the incomes you receive from, if you started working after your master, where you would have been. So it depends, because I still have colleagues that I have one good friend. When I decided to go to my PhD, he chose to go to in the industry. We are not that far, but he's still ahead of me. So maybe sometime in the future I will catch him. but so it depends. It depends, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure I have the answer to that question, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my answer is similar, but it's if we're just focusing on income, you can definitely get in at analysis group with like an undergrad or a master's. You get stopped at one point for promotion if you only have an undergrad, but if you had a master's, you could eventually get to the level that like I'm at. You would just be a couple of years behind. So I don't know, 5 years to do the PhD or 4 years to like get promoted to. associate, but then you start at a higher, I don't know. It's comparable, I suppose. So at that point, it's, I think, all the other factors that go into doing a PhD, which weigh it one way or the other.
Yeah, I was always told that the net present value, or like was always positive of doing a PhD. I know that some people who stay in that tunnel vision end up in like small universities in like France or in Germany, and yeah, their income is not good at all. It's terrible. So if you're in that stream, yeah, it's terrible. If you come out of the PhD, if you come out of the PhD, let's say you're a Berkeley PhD, you can go to Google for $500,000, or you can go to Harvard for $300,000. I mean, that tells you a little bit where you're going to be in terms of income. If you're a smart person, the PhD will not make you smarter. It just gives the signal of how smart you are, probably. So if you can convey that signal without doing a PhD, my best guess is you don't need to do a PhD if you're after income. If you're, let's say, if you're like me, introverted and maybe not super socially capable, then it can be very helpful to do a PhD and send the signal like, hey, yeah, social skills are not the best, but maybe my technical skills, which I've proven to be or to have in the PhD, tell you to pay me a lot of money, which no one really was willing to do up till now. So, so maybe the social skills still really shine through, if that's the word I could use, or don't shine through.
Jérôme, Eric?
Okay, so yeah, I think that the same thing that the other guy people said. My manager has a master degree, and he earns probably more money than I do. So, but I think that you could. Yeah, you when you have a PhD, you evolve quicker in the system. You can really be. It's easier to show that to have a kind of credibility, and to show that you know what you're doing. So I think that it helps. But I don't know. I didn't do a PhD for the money.
Yeah, on my side, I think that can actually give that's actually a good topic for a research paper on the opportunity cost of doing a PhD. I think in the fund we work in an environment where a lot of people have a PhD. Like I joined as an EP, and all EPs basically have a PhD. And also there's that tradition of EPs throughout the year. So we ended up having a lot of PhDs here. But of course, we still have like managers with just a master degree. But also at the fund, we have a different stream work, like people are lawyers, people coming from different backgrounds. I think doing a PhD, that's something I learned early on, is about what you want to do in terms of achieving that goal. Because if it's just about having some money, I mean, you may end up not doing a PhD. So I think you don't value a PhD just on the monetary scale, like, okay, I make this money, so the guy with no PhD makes that money. So because if you go that route, maybe even a master degree doesn't worth it, because in order to be trader, you don't need a master, for example. And actually, I know people that are billionaires that they don't have any university degree. So does this mean that there's no value in having a university degree? I don't think so. So for me, you don't value your university degree on a monetary scale. That's a useless thing to do, because actually you can have counter example everywhere. It's just about doing what you want to do, what you feel is right for you, and achieving those goals. That's the most important. When I know I have a PhD, that's something no one can remove from my life. I'm very proud of it. So that's it. I don't care about what money you make or what money. It's just about my life and the goal I achieved. So it's that simple. So I think that's the mindset we should have, instead of looking around seeing if it worth it to do a PhD in terms of monetary gain or things like that.
PhD itself, like it's a process as well, and you extend your student life, which is also amazing. At least for me, I was living in Amsterdam and I was going out and it was amazing. And I lived for half a year in New York, was at NYU for half a year. And so it also gives you opportunities. It's not like a black 4-year period where you don't learn or don't socialize at all. So it's not just pure costs, I would say.
Thank you. We have one last question before we're going to wrap up. And it's asking, is there any age restrictions, I guess, for trying to get one of the industry jobs?
Not at all. And I do believe that in the trainings in banks, they mention that as diversity and inclusion aspect. So we don't care. We just look at the skill set and that's it.
Same here.
Same.
As the whitest person here, not because of my skin color, but it doesn't matter.
Same thing, doesn't matter.
Okay, so with that final question, that's going to wrap it up. I'd like to extend a sincere thanks to our panelists in person and in Zoom. And I'd also like to thank our 3 organizers for planning this whole conference. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you everyone again from ForSpace. Thank you for coming into the actual space for this and having a great conversation. And we'll be closing up the webinar now. Just let you know that it's also been live streaming to YouTube, so you can go home and watch again tonight.